So the economic survey of 2023 and 24 says that almost 50% of the graduates are unemployable, right? Do you see this to be like a skill gap?
The whole question here is of what we mean by employable, right? And what constitutes employment. Because in a society such as ours, and if you were to say, Acha main gana gata hu, that is not considered employment, right? Or main stand-up comedy karta hu, that's not considered employment. To be a doctor, engineer, IAS officer, police officer, and so on and so forth. So we have a certain notion of what employability is, which restricts the understanding of the individual self, that human beings are capable of much creativity. And if somebody were to ask me to advise their child on, okay, now what is your future going to be? I say, I don't know. My father could not advise me because the world had moved on beyond his time. And I cannot advise somebody because the world has moved on beyond my time. So, artificial intelligence, IT, has created such an explosion of possibilities. Think about the people making millions through Instagram. So, when you think about all of that, so it comes to the question of what do we mean by employability? What do we mean by employment? What do we mean by skills? And very often, our educational policies are an inheritance from an industrial past.
Hmm.
Our educational systems are lagging behind because they are about creating people who will service an industrial economy, whereas the world has changed. So things like time structure. You go to school from 8 to whatever it is.
Hmm.
Questions
Hmm.
of discipline, cutting your hair. This becomes a major issue in schools. I don't know why.
Hmm.
Wearing a uniform. All of this are preparing you for the time discipline of an industrial capitalism. It's not about creativity, it's about conformity, it's about fitting in, it's about subjecting yourself to a certain kind of discipline. So the question is that when we think about the relation between schools and employability, I would think that there is very little relation between schooling and employability, that
Hmm.
people become employable despite the fact that they've been to school and university, right? It's a question of creativity. Think about what you yourself are doing. I mean, if you were to think about the schooling that you had and the creative space that you occupy, there is very little. It's something that you have done on your own. So, this question of how do we think about higher education? How do we move away from a concentration on texts? Right? This is something that we know all through school, which is why we have these questions of dyslexia, and where if you are unable to read a text, this is seen as a sign of failure rather than asking what is the skill that you have that allows you to access another space. Fundamental to this is the question of creativity versus productivity. Most of our education system is about being productive within an existing structure. It's not about standing beside that. It's not about being creative. It's about information rather than skills.